If you had just one glance, just 5 seconds, could you tell if she's been through hell and never healed? Could you spot the miles without her saying a single word? Most men walk blindly into the lives of women carrying the weight of 10 past lives and only realize it when that baggage crushes them. You're not stupid. You're just not trained to see what she's not saying. But this video will change that. Because once you learn how to read the signs, you'll never look at her the same way again. And you'll never waste another year of your life giving your soul to someone who was never whole to begin with. You were taught to ask. You were told, just communicate. Ask her about her past, her wounds, her exes. But what happens when her answer is wrapped in shame? Or when she edits the story to keep your interest? You get a filtered truth. You get half the picture. And in today's world, where image is everything and honesty is rare, men like you need more than trust. You need clarity. You need discernment. You need the kind of vision that pierces through the smile and hears what isn't spoken. Because the pain you ignore now will become the prison you live in later. You're up against a system that teaches women to perform rather than reveal. A society where filters aren't just digital, they're emotional. She's been told to protect her past at all costs. She's been rewarded for silence. And you? You were never taught to read between the lines. But that ends today, because real power is observation, and real peace is choosing based on truth. And if you're ready to live like that, not just survive modern relationships, but master them, you need a new lens, a new system. That's why I created the Stoic Relationship Blueprint. This isn't just a book. It's the field manual for men who want to stop guessing and start understanding, to lead without losing themselves, to love without being used. It's out now, but it won't be public forever. To protect the depth of this work, we're only offering it for a limited time. You've got a small window. Use it. Comment, "No more blind spots," if you're ready to open your eyes. Now, let's get into how you can discover a woman's entire past without asking her a single question. Number 1, her relationship with attention. You want to understand the blueprint of a woman's emotional history. Then don't start with what she says when you ask her questions. Start with what happens when she enters the room. That first 5 seconds, how her eyes scan, how her shoulders rise or fall, how her body subtly shifts, is everything you need to know. You're not just watching a woman, you're watching a past playing out in real time. And the way she reacts to being seen tells you exactly what parts of her have been forgotten, dismissed or neglected in the years before you. A woman who was deeply loved and genuinely valued doesn't need the world to notice her to feel whole. But the one who grew up overlooked, the one who's still trying to prove she's worth being seen, she will feed off that attention like it's the only proof she matters. If she glows only when eyes are on her and dims when they aren't, she's not thriving, she's surviving. And a man needs to know that survival looks a lot like seduction when it's rooted in deep emotional starvation. When she casually mentions how many men flirted with her this week or how the gym trainer gave her too much attention, she's not updating you, she's signaling you, telling you what she measures her value by. Because if male attention is still a scorecard in her head, understand this: you're not the prize, you're the provider of her next fix. And if you stop providing it, she will need to seek it somewhere else. Not because she's evil, but because the void she's trying to fill has nothing to do with you. Compliments that make her light up like it's her first time hearing them aren't signs of innocence. They're signs of emotional famine. And you must learn to read hunger for what it is. Not romance, not desire, but an echo of years where she was told she didn't matter unless someone was looking. A woman at peace with herself doesn't chase stares. She doesn't need to be noticed by the world to feel seen by herself. But if every outfit is curated for eyes, if every movement is calculated to turn heads, then she's still living in a world where being ignored is the greatest fear, not because of ego, but because of pain. Watch how she responds, not when you flood her with praise, but when you pull back. Does she collapse emotionally? Does she start posting thirst traps, fishing for external affirmations? Does she need the outside world to convince her she still has worth? Because attention, when used as evidence of value, is a trap, and most men fall into it without realizing they're not giving love. They're feeding a wound. If she cannot feel complete without the attention of many, she will never build loyalty with one. And you'll be chasing her validation loop for years, calling it love, wondering why you're exhausted. Don't ask her to explain her need for attention. Watch her live it. Because in those moments where she lights up for the world, but dims in your quiet presence, you've already seen all you need to know. She's not showing off. She's showing you her past, and it's louder than anything she'll ever say. Number 2. Her friend group. Says everything. You want to see a woman's future? Don't look at her goals, look at her tribe. Because her closest circle isn't just a reflection of who she likes. It's a map of who she is, who she's becoming, and what she still hasn't let go of. If every woman around her is wild, broken, chaotic, bitter, or loud, and she tells you, "I'm not like them," brother, she's like them. Not because she copies them, but because she chooses them. You don't keep company with people who trigger you unless you still need what they offer. And most women who remain entangled with chaotic friends do so because the drama feels safer than the quiet they fear. The loud friend who's constantly chasing rich men. The bitter one who swears all guys are trash. The one who's always at brunch but never emotionally available. These aren't just personalities, they're anchors. And no matter how sweet she may seem alone, if those are her sisters, you're not dating an individual. You're inheriting a collective. Watch how she talks about them. Does she defend their madness, excuse their mess, laugh when they lie? Then ask yourself, how long before those same patterns show up in her? It's not judgment, it's discernment. You don't need to hate her friends. You just need to recognize that a woman who still bonds over gossip, validation chasing, and broken love stories isn't building from healing, she's building from habit. Does she feel energized or drained by her people? Do they pour into her or pull her back into cycles she swears she's outgrown? And when she says she's different, does she act different when they're around? Does her voice pitch change? Her behavior get louder? Does the woman who's calm with you suddenly become performative in their presence? That's not balance, that's duality. And duality comes from confusion, from not knowing who she is when no one's telling her who to be. A woman who's truly healed doesn't need to constantly be the mother, the fixer, or the rebel in her friend group. She surrounds herself with peace, not just fun, with truth, not just noise, with depth, not just distraction. She chooses people who reflect her values, not the life she's trying to escape. And if you find yourself in a relationship where you dread her girls' night, not because you're insecure, but because you know those women don't value loyalty, depth, or commitment, listen to that instinct. That's not paranoia, that's prophecy. Because the people she calls when she's vulnerable are the people she's modeling herself after. And sooner or later, their energy will bleed into your home. Men ignore this because they think love is about two people. But love is always a village. And if her village is still broken, you're not building a relationship. You're building inside a storm you didn't create, and it will take everything from you. Number 3, how she talks about loyalty. If you want to know what a woman believes about loyalty, don't ask her. Listen to her when she's not trying to convince you of anything, when she talks about her past, not to connect, but to cope. when she reminisces about friends who switched up, and men who did her wrong, and exes who just couldn't handle her honesty. Because buried in every one of those stories is a blueprint not of what happened, but of what she tolerated, what she normalized, and what she now expects as default from every relationship forward. And if every tale ends with her being the victim and everyone else being the problem, then understand this: she doesn't understand loyalty. She understands loyalty as currency, as something others owe her in exchange for her presence. And that's not connection, that's control. And you'll see it in the way she praises herself for staying with someone who mistreated her and blames the world when someone finally set a boundary she didn't like. Because loyalty without accountability is not virtue, it's fear in disguise. And a woman who speaks like she's never been wrong, who laughs when recalling crossing lines in old relationships but cries when others did the same, isn't loyal. She's a historian who edits her past to protect her image, and that image will matter more than truth when the next conflict comes. And if she talks about loyalty like it's a badge she wears, but cannot describe moments where she chose discomfort to protect it, chose growth over gossip, chose silence over revenge, then her definition of loyalty is shaped by how others treated her, not how she honors others. And that is a dangerous woman to love, because the first time you fall short, and you will, she won't ask what you meant. She'll assume what she fears, and loyalty becomes a transaction, not a foundation. And that kind of loyalty only lasts until she's inconvenienced, not until she understands. And if she posts about loyalty, but you see how quickly she tears others down when they're not in the room, how her stories always come with the phrase, "They were just jealous," or "They couldn't handle my energy," know that she's not describing loyalty, she's describing ego. And when push comes to shove, she will choose to protect her pride, not your bond. And that isn't malice, it's unhealed identity. And you'll spend your time trying to prove to her that you're not like the last one, when what she needs isn't a better man, it's a better understanding of herself. And if she cannot give grace to those who once gave her their time, she won't give grace to you either. Not when it matters, not when it hurts, not when you most need someone to stay and work through the wreckage with you. And if she cannot remember anyone from her past with peace, with empathy, even if it ended in pain, then understand, she doesn't just lack loyalty to others, she lacks loyalty to her own growth. And a woman like that will turn every lesson into a weapon, and every conflict into a test you weren't told you were taking. And you will fail, not because you're weak, but because she was never looking for loyalty. She was looking for someone to pass all the tests the last man failed, without ever asking herself why she chose him in the first place. And if you stay, you'll be punished for someone else's betrayal, blamed for someone else's exit. And that's not love, that's unresolved war disguised as romance. Number 4. Comfort with chaos equals past drama. There are women who say they want peace, who whisper in your ear that they're done with the drama, that they just want a calm man who makes them feel safe. But the moment you give them stability, they start to drown. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because peace is unfamiliar, and unfamiliar feels unsafe to a nervous system trained by betrayal. And the first time you come home calm after a long day and just want quiet and closeness, she might pick a fight, because conflict feels like home. And a man who doesn't understand this will think he's not enough, will think he needs to be more exciting, more passionate, more reactive. But what she actually needs is therapy, not turbulence. And it's not your job to pull her out of the chaos she never stopped chasing. And when you plan a quiet weekend to connect, she'll say she's bored. And when you speak gently, she'll say you don't care. And when you avoid yelling, she'll say you're cold, because everything you do will feel wrong to a woman who only knows love through the lens of pain. And you'll feel like you're losing her, but you were never holding her. You were holding her fantasy of you. And the moment you didn't match her trauma map, she began to rewrite the story. And the story ends with her calling you too soft, too distant, too safe, not realizing that safety was what she begged for, until she actually received it. And if she can't sit still with peace, she'll start arguments not because she wants to, but because the quiet is too loud for someone who was never taught to rest in love. Only fight for it, and you'll become her emotional punching bag, her placeholder for an ex who yelled, or a father who left, or a life that never felt steady. And she will run from you while swearing she wants you, and you'll stay because you believe you're close to breaking through, but you're not close. You're caught, and the more you try to rescue her, the more she'll pull you into the whirlpool, and before long, your nervous system will match hers. Your mind will become fogged with guilt, confusion, and anxiety, and the man you were before, the clear, grounded, peaceful man, will become someone else entirely. And she will mourn that version of you, not realizing she was the one who broke him. And when you finally set a boundary, she'll call it abandonment. And when you finally say enough, she'll say you gave up, and you will question everything, because you saw her potential. You saw her softness in those few rare calm nights where she let her armor drop. But those moments weren't the truth. They were glimpses, and glimpses don't build homes. And unless she's willing to fight her patterns the same way you've been fighting for her presence, you will become another chapter in her book of heartbreaks. Another man, she says, couldn't handle her, and another scar she wears as proof that love is chaos, not a choice. And the worst part, she'll miss you, but only when the chaos goes quiet again. Number 5. Watch for timeline breadcrumbs. The timeline doesn't lie, not because she won't, but because her mouth may edit what her memory forgets to. And if you watch long enough, if you listen not just to her words, but the patterns within them, you'll begin to see the outline of her emotional history. And that outline is everything. Because a woman who has healed doesn't just tell you what happened, she shows you peace in how she speaks. She tells you consistency in how she refers to her past. She doesn't have to avoid questions, skip over years, or change the subject when a name gets mentioned, but the one who hasn't. She'll say she's been single for 2 years, but casually reference a vacation we took last summer. She'll talk about how she doesn't even talk to her ex anymore, but you'll hear his music in her car, or notice that her reactions to specific things still feel fresh, still feel charged, like the breakup happened yesterday, not years ago, and those fragments she leaves behind. Those, "I used to love that place, and we always watched this show, and I hate that beach," without explanation. Those are more honest than anything she says in full sentences, because emotional memory doesn't lie. And when a woman is still carrying the remnants of a relationship, she won't hold your hand like it's the first. She'll grip it like it's the replacement, and you'll feel it in her comparisons, in the jokes that sound like confessions, in the way she freezes when something reminds her of someone else, because we all bleed a little when we speak. And if you pay attention to the timeline she tries to gloss over, you'll know exactly how ready or unready she is to be with you. And the most dangerous thing a man can do is fall for someone who hasn't closed the last chapter, someone who calls themselves single but is still emotionally entangled in past events. They pretend don't matter, and you'll see it in her hesitations, in the way she avoids saying certain names or can't say them without venom, in how quickly she gets defensive when you ask innocent questions, not because you're prying, but because the truth still feels sharp when it brushes up against her breath. And if she tells you she's healed, but gets hostile when you ask when the healing happened, understand that she's trying to believe what she's not yet lived, and you, if you're wise, won't call her out. You'll collect the breadcrumbs, piece together the real timeline, and ask yourself one thing: do I want to be the man she starts fresh with, or the one she uses to forget him? Because if she's not done with her story, she will write your name into the chapter she was trying to erase. And no man should ever be someone's emotional cover-up. No man should ever be someone's bridge between pain and peace. And you'll know you're that bridge when her timeline is full of holes, and her stories sound scripted, and her dates don't match, because that's not lying with intent. It's avoiding with instinct. And if you make the mistake of believing her healing just because she says she's ready, you'll soon find yourself carrying emotions you didn't create and reacting to wounds you never caused. And that's how good men become tired ones. Number 6. Decode her passive comments. The truth doesn't always scream. It slips casually, quietly, in the way she jokes about being cheated on, in how she rolls her eyes when she says, "Men always leave," in the sarcastic smile that follows a dark memory, like she's trying to laugh away the ache she never dealt with. And this is the language most men miss, because they think pain only speaks in tears and anger. But it often speaks in laughter that doesn't reach the eyes, and if you pay close attention, you'll see that the things she jokes about are the things she's lived, and the things she mocks are the things that broke her. And while she may tell you she's over it, the way her body reacts when she tells that funny story about being ghosted says otherwise, and when she talks about her friend getting cheated on with a little too much emotion for someone not involved, she's not entertaining you. She's revealing something, because projection is not always malicious. It's often unprocessed memory spilling into present words. And when a woman drops phrases like "men always cheat" or "trust is a joke" in between laughs, don't just hear her humor, hear her history, hear the betrayal she never sat with, the nights she pretended she didn't care, the lies she swallowed so deeply they became punchlines. And while it's tempting to brush off those comments or laugh with her, thinking it's no big deal, what you're really doing is ignoring the emotional landmines beneath your feet, because these aren't just jokes. They're defense mechanisms, coded warnings, emotional disclaimers. And if you're not fluent in the language of pain disguised as wit, you'll walk straight into her wound, thinking it was a safe place to land, and then wonder why she explodes over something small, why she suddenly pulls back when you don't answer your phone, why she accuses you of things you never did. And it'll all trace back to the stories she told when you weren't really listening. And this is where discernment becomes more valuable than charm, because a wise man doesn't just hear a woman's jokes. He hears her heart. And if her heart still speaks in sarcasm and passive cuts, understand that she's not yet ready to be open, she's only ready to survive. And if you enter that space thinking you'll bring her clarity by being better than her past, you'll find yourself proving things she should have already believed, defending choices you didn't make, and slowly being resented for loving her too clearly, too calmly, too consistently. Because for someone who only knows love as a game of survival, your peace will feel threatening, and her passive comments, if you map them, will give you every answer you're afraid to ask directly, and you don't need to push her to explain them. Just notice, record, reflect, and decide, because when someone keeps using humor to say the unsayable, what they're really doing is testing whether you're wise enough to read between the lines, or just another man who laughs, nods, and walks into the same fire thinking it's a fireplace. Number 7. Judge how she moves in male spaces. There's something about a room full of men that reveals what no dating profile or dinner conversation ever could. And if you truly want to understand where a woman places her worth, watch how she carries herself when male attention is everywhere. Because in that space, when no one's officially watching but everyone's looking, you'll see if she's grounded in her self-worth or still craving the approval she never received. And it's not about being attractive or social. It's about what fuels her energy, what lifts her spirit, what pulls her attention. Because a woman who walks into a room of men and becomes louder, flirtier, and suddenly animated isn't revealing confidence. She's broadcasting a need, a gap, a history of being overlooked or underestimated, and instead of healing it, she feeds it. And when you're with her, if she lights up more in male-heavy environments than she does around you in private, you're not in a relationship. You're a placeholder for her reflection in their eyes. And when you find yourself questioning why she needs to stand so close, laugh so loud, touch so casually, Understand that you're not crazy, you're not insecure, you're observant, and what you're seeing is not femininity. It's a strategy developed through years of learning that attention equals value, and the more men who affirm her, the more real she feels. But the tragedy is, she doesn't even know she's doing it. She's just chasing something she never truly got in the right way. And if she surrounds herself with male friends who offer her little but flirtation disguised as friendship, if she consistently keeps one or two men orbiting her life just in case, if she downplays their importance while lighting up at their messages, you're watching a woman who isn't cheating, but who also isn't emotionally committed. And the most dangerous thing isn't infidelity, it's divided attention, and it will slowly erode your peace as you watch her seek validation outside your bond, not because you're not enough, but because enough was never defined by depth. It was defined by how many wanted her. And in this game, there's no winning, because even when you give her your best, it won't compare to the thrill of being noticed again and again and again. And if she needs eyes on her to feel alive, she'll subconsciously chase situations that invite pursuit, that invite compliments, that invite risk. And you'll always feel like you're competing with a shadow you can't name, a presence that isn't physical but is always there, in the way she tells you about the guy at the cafe who smiled, in the way she downplays the guy who keeps texting, in the way she says, "He's just a friend." But you can feel the pull, the subtle shift, and that shift is what destroys men, because we start questioning ourselves, wondering if we're too controlling or too paranoid. But the truth is, you're neither. You're just trying to love someone who still measures her beauty by how many want her, and unless she's ready to be seen by one and feel full, you'll spend your days pouring into a heart that's cracked open to everyone, and when you finally speak up, she'll call you insecure, and you'll start to doubt what you saw. But what you saw was real, and the way she moves in male spaces is not about her outfit or her charm. It's about her past, and her need, and her unresolved search for something she thinks only the gaze of many can give her, but it can't. And the more she chases it, the further away she gets from the kind of connection she claims to want. And the more you stay, the more it breaks you. Not because you're weak, but because you thought love was about mutual seeing, and she only knows how to see herself through the lens of others, not through the lens of one man who'd give her everything if only she could sit still long enough to receive it. Number 8. Observe her conflict reactions. You never know who someone truly is until the moment things go wrong, because when everything's good, anyone can smile, anyone can love, anyone can be calm. But when you forget to call, or plans change, or you say something she didn't like, what happens then, in that exact moment, is the most honest version of her you will ever meet. And if she lashes out, withdraws, blames, mocks, brings up old pain, turns cold, or attacks you where you're most vulnerable, you're not just in a disagreement. You're in her memory, in the trauma she never addressed, in the part of her past that molded her reaction long before you ever showed up. And too many men ignore these early signs because they want to believe it's just stress or hormones, or that she's just passionate. But what you're really witnessing is a survival system that activates every time she feels unsafe or unseen. And if she's not healed, every conflict will feel like war. Not because you deserve it, but because someone else trained her to expect pain when closeness happens. And if you continue, you'll become her emotional battleground, blamed for wounds you didn't cause, forced to walk on eggshells so you don't wake up her fears. And over time, her inability to regulate, to breathe, to stay instead of run, will train you to be less honest, to avoid discomfort, to keep things inside just so you don't trigger a reaction that feels bigger than the moment. And that's how men lose themselves. Not in the good times, but in the bad ones, because every apology comes with a price. Every resolution feels like a temporary ceasefire instead of healing. And the worst part is, she might cry and say she doesn't know why she reacts that way, and she might be telling the truth. But knowing why doesn't change what it costs you, and you'll spend nights trying to say things better, softer, quieter, hoping that if you just love her enough, she'll stop exploding, stop retreating, stop punishing you for loving her imperfectly. But no amount of love can override a history that hasn't been faced. And if she doesn't know how to disagree without destroying, then what she calls love is actually a test of your tolerance for chaos. And when you fail it, because eventually you will, she'll say you couldn't handle her, and she'll miss you only when someone else stops responding to her reactions the way you did. And if you stay, thinking your patience is strength, understand this. Patience without boundaries is self-destruction, and if you find yourself always recovering after conflict, apologizing first, absorbing blame, feeling like every disagreement ends with you losing a part of your dignity, then you're not growing together. You're managing her emotional weather system, and you deserve more than that, not because you're perfect, but because love isn't supposed to feel like walking into landmines with a blindfold, hoping this time you won't set her off. And if she cannot speak without attacking, cannot be hurt without accusing, cannot listen without twisting your words, then she's not ready for a relationship. She's ready for healing. And until she does that work, the relationship won't be between two people. It will be between you and the echo of everyone who's ever let her down. And that is a fight no man wins, because it was never about you to begin with. If you've made it this far, then you already know. Most men don't lose years of their life because they picked the wrong woman. They lose it because they didn't know how to read her. They trusted a smile over a pattern, a story over a signal, and by the time they realized who she really was, it was already too late. But you don't have to be that man, because right now you have something most never get, a chance to see clearly before the damage is done. And that's exactly why I created the Stoic Relationship Blueprint. It's not just an ebook, it's the map we were never given, the emotional armor you were never taught to wear. And it's linked right now in the top comment, because this level of truth can't sit on a shelf. It was made for men like you who are done guessing and ready to lead with clarity, strength, and peace. So if you're ready to protect your time, your mind, and your future, comment the Stoic Blueprint, hit that like button so this truth reaches the next man before it's too late, and subscribe, because this is only the beginning.